Hello, humans. Hello, humans. It's Wednesday, 6:54 a.m. I'm doing a quick audio here before I get it probably won't be quick, so just bear that in mind. Making breakfast and doing an audio here before I get my day started. I think I figured out a way to get the idea across on a manifestation and what you need to do in your mind. So there'll be a lot of slurping here. I'm just up and into my second cup of coffee. This is a difficult subject, right? It's not difficult conceptually. It's real simple. You get an idea. You imagine that idea to some level of fulfillment in terms of what you would like it to be. Then you move it over to a particular point in your mind, which also brings it to a particular point in your brain. Then you put in energy in the form of genning up an emotion about it. Usually that part's relatively easy. And then you let it be. Then you just let it, once you put the emotion in it, you just assume this attitude of it having manifested and let it be, and it shows up. And so this is like the perfect day meditation in the theta state in your brain just before you get out of bed or just before you drop off to sleep. You imagine what your perfect day would be like. Maybe you got 5 things in there and you just go through these 5 things and then you just drop off and let it be. And in doing this over time, puts energy, it forms all of the characteristics of that are necessary for manifestation, and then these items will start showing up in your reality. So I got to go into some background. Okay, so let me just go into the process. And then you can drop the rest of this if you're not interested in any of the background and historical aspects of it. So here's the process, right? The idea is that there's nothing other than supreme consciousness. Supreme consciousness created the illusion of matter. It doesn't exist. Every scientist will tell you that. All atoms are just space. And they don't exist until you actually try and measure them. Anyway, so our reality is basically an illusion. And so the idea is here that as humans, we are within the illusion, our minds are within the illusion, as are our bodies, but the nature of us, our consciousness, is part of supreme consciousness that is thinking itself isolated by virtue of the illusion. That isolation is accomplished by an aspect of supreme consciousness that we call the soul. And you have a soul assigned to your consciousness, your little chunk, and then it goes with that consciousness through all of its many lives. And that's why it's valuable. If that soul is lost, if that energetic container is lost or damaged, then you don't exist anymore. You blend back into supreme consciousness and you lose all sense of identity, you lose all of your history, etc., tied to you. So this is why people are frightened about the soul aspect. Anyway, so in our reality, everything is vibration. Tesla told you that, Buckminster Fuller, everybody tells you it's all vibration. But you don't get it because you're living in the illusion and you think this shit here is solid. You think that wood is really solid. And it's not. It's just vibrating out so fast that you can't detect that it's just simply an illusion. Anyway, so you can affect the illusion because your mind is part of it. In fact, the illusion is responding to your mind in order to keep it thinking that it's isolated and is you, as opposed to just a chunk of supreme consciousness floating about. So, the nature of our reality, that you are in an illusion, you are part of the illusion, that your mind and consciousness are part of the illusion, and your body is wholly within the illusion, all of that contributes to this particular concept. And this concept is at the core of good and evil. Okay, it's the battle between good and evil. All right, so in the good side, you have the ability, and it happens naturally, that the universe creates the universe, or supreme consciousness creates the universe that you want to see. So you get a resonance, you're feeling a particular way, universe reflects that back to you. So if you had a good attitude and you go bursting on into work and you're cheery and all of this kind of stuff, and everybody you meet, you leave them feeling better in the day, universe is going to reflect that back to you. You will have a good day. Then your next day will be good because you will have charged up some of this supreme consciousness energy on your behalf in that particular mode. This is why emotions are contagious. This is at the core of propaganda, social mind control, the physical engineering of our reality that's being done by the evil ones on the other side of the control structure, right? The Pharisees at the top, they are engineering this by stealing energy from you in the manifestation process, because you're manifesting continuously and you just don't know it. Because you don't know the real nature of our reality and they've got you tricked with all of their physics, then you participate unwittingly in your own destruction. Now, so you can use these same mechanisms that they use, all right? They get an idea, they create imagery, and they put that imagery in your head. And then through the social media like X and all of these kind of things, they try and gen up a particular emotion, usually negative, in order to get some power to it and in order to get the thing to manifest. That's what they're doing. That's why social media is constructed the way it is at its core. There's all the other layers, all the money, all the political control, all of the influencing, all of the emotional hate, anger kind of shit. All of that is valid, but it's at a much reduced, it's not the cause. It's not the nature of our reality being shaped the way it is. That's why X is the way it is. That's why all the social media is the way it is, in order to create these effects and keep it going so that they can mine and exploit you as a manifestation slave. And that's what's going on. Many of us discover these things and then we just step out. I've taken the extra effort here of trying to leave trails so that people can self-educate from these words, right? And so I'm just putting these out there. If you listen to them, then the universe wants you to listen to them. And if you follow them, then the universe wants you to follow them and change your life. It's not, I have no emotional interest in it. I have no ego attachment to it. None of that shit, right? Universe prompts me and I do it. So here we are. Now, manifestation I've used all my life. I'm very successful. I've died 3 times. So I've lived a very unusual life. And I've died 3 times. I've recovered from that death, each of those deaths. And I have had cancer 3 times. Cancer only killed me once, this last one. Now, at age 72, my goal is to see a calisthenics movement and do that calisthenics movement. I don't care if it's a handstand push-up or if it's a full-on planche, right? I will do those. In fact, I'm making very good progress. I'm building up muscle mass, and I'm 72 years old, and I recently, 8 years ago, died from colon cancer at 128 pounds. So I am living proof that manifestation works. And most of it, I don't exercise my ass off or any of that kind of stuff. So in manifestation does not work that way. Your mind is more powerful than your body in this regard, okay? Because that's where most of this happens. Now, here's the process. And then there's a lot of caveats, guys. This is very complex. So there's lots of individual little rules. Other civilizations have called all these little rules karma. And we can get into that over the course of months, and we can get drilled down into each and every aspect of it and show you how it participates and where it arises from, because it's all interrelated. So there are rules. You need to learn those, but I'm going to necessarily have to start you off at the beginning and hope you have enough initial success to keep you interested while you pursue the nuances and how it actually works. The best reference I've found in terms of simplicity of how this works is a guy by the name of Neville Goddard. His videos are mostly AI generated, but if you get his book and read his words, and some of the videos are pretty good, they follow it pretty accurately. Be aware that there are some that are doing their own agenda that don't really follow Neville Goddard precisely. So you need to, watch enough of them so you get the general sense of it. So watch him for that. Now, here's the thing. He tumbled to some of it. and he was oblivious to other parts of it. He was oblivious to the physical part because he was a dancer, and he was very used to getting body cues, right? Having his body tell him that something's going to happen, and he responded to it just unconsciously, didn't even think about it. Thus, he did not think to mention it to all of us guys. But it's necessary that you pay attention to your body in this process. Okay, so you get an idea of what you want to manifest. You need to understand. So it's essential that you understand the difference between a need and a want, right? So you get different reactions from each of those on the manifestation process depending on their nature. There's rules like you can't manifest a human, for instance, right? So the stalker we've got here will never be able to manifest any of the imaginings in his mind because you cannot do that to another soul-encapsulated being. There's barriers there, right? So I could have somebody be my slave, but they would have to willingly accept that role, right? I can't imagine them as a slave and then manifest them into that role. It won't work that way because we're all imagining beings, and so we're all directing the formation of the reality in front of our eyes by nature of our own resonances. Okay, so real relationships are different than other kinds of manifestation. Now, ultimately, every manifestation involves relationships at some level, and you need to understand this. And as you get more sophisticated with this process, you'll get some of these things naturally coming up, and you'll understand. It's like, aha, I understand why that happened. It's a relationship between this individual over there and this money, that kind of thing, right? Mostly people try and manifest money, houses, physical material, that kind of thing. Then the second most thing they try and manifest is relationship, and a third is health. You can do a great deal with health, okay? So it's really powerful there. And it's really powerful with money. I have no, I'm not super wealthy. I'm not like Elon Musk wealthy or anything like that. I am comfortable, guys, because I know that even at age 72, if I'm wiped out by some kind of, meteor coming down and taking out my bank or whatever the fuck, right? I can start over again easily and recover very easily because I know how to do the manifestation. So I don't worry about having the piled up reserves or exploiting people for my perceived benefit. I just don't do that. Anyway, so those are also rules, okay? Because those go to some of the further depth of karma. You're going to get better manifestation if your imaginings are not in conflict with others. You're going to get even further benefit, easier manifestation, bigger, etc., if your imaginings will aid other people. This is the kind of hook that they put into the Nasara Gasara horse shit, that, you develop this huge plan, work your ass off, do all of this kind of stuff, pay money to get it scoped by idiot people that are in no way involved with any official process, because they want you to think that, but it reaches down deeply into you. And so they think they've got these people hooked with the dinar scam and all of these kind of things by telling them that you will, because you have a plan to benefit humanity, God's going to smile on you, so to speak, and you'll get your dinar reval before anybody else. Bunch of horseshit. Anyway, and you need not involve yourself with any of these scams. Okay, so manifestation of money or wealth or income is different. You don't need to involve yourself with any of these kind of things. So here's the thing. Okay, so you get an idea. I want money. All right. And then you say to yourself, and then usually where people go wrong is they say, well, and then they get into these incredibly detailed imaginings of how supposedly the money is going to come to them. And that is a natural part of our analytical mind. That part of our analytical mind is captured by all of these people with their dinar and Gasara, Nasara, Reval scams. The detail part draws you in. You put more emotional energy into it. They know they've got you hooked when you're actually doing this horse shit that they want you to do, wasting your time because they've got your energy involved. They're actually using your energy to help manifest their future. and you're just unaware of it. This happens to us continuously, is the powers that be are always using our energy to manifest their future. Anyway, so you get the idea, and then you get the imagining about it, right? So I want money, and I need money, maybe, right? Because you're desperately poor, whatever. And so there is a difference. There is an emotional qualifier difference between a need and a want. You'll find needs, by the way, are body-driven. Wants are emotion, desire, that kind of thing. The body provides more emotional energy when it has needs, and therefore that broadcasts out further. Your resonance goes further, therefore it reacts better. This is how this kind of shit works. So you get the idea, I want money, I need money, and then you get an imagining, okay? And the imagining, it's important that you not put any effort into figuring out how that shit's going to happen. Right? You're not trying to direct universe to set you up with a secondary passive income out of the Bahamas or something, right? Some weird shit. You don't want to get into any detail. You just want to acknowledge that you need money, you need income, and you want money and you want income, right? In my opinion, there's two separate ways in the manifestation for the material stuff. So in my opinion, I think it's easier to manifest income streams than actual wealth, because the universe is going to try and provide the wealth in the form of a lump sum somehow. And those kind of things take longer. It's going to try and provide material reality to you. But in my opinion, if you just say, okay, I just need another income stream, then those things can be relatively easily set up, right? The material reality doesn't have to work so hard to resonate and reflect back to you and meet your desire. And so you can accommodate the process by being smart about how you do manifestation, making it easier for the universe to fulfill it for you. So this is necessarily repetitious. Okay, we're going to come up to the big lump, the big hard part here real quick. Okay, so you get an idea, you get an imagining, you say, I want money, I need money. And then in your imagining, you just imagine yourself in the situation of that desire fulfilled. So to you, what does that having money mean, right? So you might want to, you get a little image. It has to be sort of visual, but you don't have to make it very detailed. You can make it as detailed as you want in this case because you're not after nuance. There's no conflicts here, right? And so basically, by the way, that's it. You can set up all kinds of internal conflicts that cause universe to not manifest for you. So we need to get into that briefly here. Anyway, so you have your imagining. You want money, you need money. And then you imagine yourself with that wish fulfilled, with that desire fulfilled. Imagine yourself kicking back. You got a big blunt. You got your feet up on the coffee table. You don't have any worries. Primarily, though, what you're after in this imagining is to imagine how you will feel. Okay, the material circumstances, how you imagine yourself, the reality of the room you imagine yourself in, all of that kind of stuff is pertinent. And it matters, but only to the goal of producing within your body the feeling of the thing manifest. That's what triggers the universe to respond to you. So if you're in the process of doing an imagining and you've got all kinds of internal conflicts, when you get up to the point of putting the emotion behind it and imagining the object fulfilled, you'll find that the edges are like funny. They're fuzzy. There's not a completeness to it. You can see the difference. You can feel the difference if you'll do a little imagining versus a large one. And then the large one takes time. It's more difficult to achieve, but the little one's quick, that kind of thing, right? And it's clean. So you can actually start to feel the difference in the manifestation process. So you have an idea, you get it into your imagination, and then you fill it out with the wish, the desire fulfilled, how it will be for you, trying to create in your body a state of being. This state of being is what is like the on switch for the process relative to universe. This is like the third step, right? This is where we put emotion behind the imagining. which then ends up putting emotion behind the idea. So you can do it with words. I know people that don't do any visualization. They entirely do the process of manifestation with words, and here's why they are able to do it. Now, I'm going to divert for a second. A lot of people can't do it at that level linguistically. They have to have the visualization. Either one of them will work effectively. So don't get stressed out about it. Anyway, so the third stage of the process here is the placing of the emotion behind the idea and the imagining. This is done by moving the idea into the language center of the mind. And that has a corresponding physical process within the brain. And so this can actually be mapped on their little, the doctor's little brain activity machines. Someone doing manifestation, you can actually see the language center of the brain activating. Now, most people don't have a good sense in their mind in their spatial orientation of their body, where their language center in their mind is. Just for your reference, it's basically behind the left eye and up a little bit, and then over towards the center of the brain a little bit. Okay, so anyway, the moving this thing into the language center can be difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people fail there. It takes them a while to understand what is going on here and why this is necessary. So you don't want to describe it to yourself with a lot of words. That's not the idea, right? The idea is to activate what's known as the lemma, the language center in the mind, which activates the lemma within the brain, which in turn calls into play the hypothalamus, which releases hormones, causing the emotional response. And then it releases the pituitary excretion as well as the pineal excretion into the claustrum, which causes the consciousness to respond. The claustrum is where your seat of consciousness is. You can look it up on a brain map. When this occurs, that sets up the vibration, and that sends that vibration out into the universe that is then reflected back to you in the form of the resonance as the material world changes to meet your expectations. That's actually what's going on. So you put it into the lemma any damn way you can get it there, right? This is a big aspect of it, that it's not easily understood. But Neville Goddard had a way of phrasing this, and I think it's very valid. And if you play around with it, you'll get this because it's a feeling, okay? And so you have your visualization, or you have your words describing your want or need. It only goes down just a brief bit. And then you have this imagining of you in that state of being, of the wish or desire fulfilled, okay? And then Neville Goddard's suggestion, I think, is very valid. Okay, and it's also replicated in other people that do this work in one form or another. And what I suggest, and I do this myself, is that when I have those two components, I have the idea and then I have the imagining set up to create the feeling within my body, then I say to myself, you could say it out loud. I don't think that it matters that much one way or another. I don't. But I say to myself, I am now this. So those 4 words, I am now this. And so I look at my new beautiful house here and, my beautiful Heidi, and I say to myself, I am now this. I am here, I'm living in this, I have Heidi here, and so I am now this. And this is very accurate, it's very good. This reinforces the idea to my brain when I say I am now this, that I want the universe to replicate the imagining that has been placed into the linguistic center at that point. Now, you can use any damn words you want, anything that will allow you to put it into the linguistic center, which is what triggers the emotional response out of the hypothalamus, right? And so anything that does that, anything that will allow you to feel that shift into that part of your brain will do the job. So I'm going to let breakfast sit here for a minute and then get back to it in a second. But because I'm almost done with this. I'll do others of these and provide what guidance I can. This is all self-serving, by the way. I get like karmic points from universe for doing good shit. You'll find out that that's true. So, anyway, it may be advisable to try that. That's also why they try and get you to do all of the charity work with the Gasara and Nasara horseshit. They're trying to suck you in by these various mind avenues and then get you captured and then take your money, because that's how they're manifesting their stuff, right? They don't really understand. They think that it's honorable to do this kind of stuff or whatever, and they don't realize karmic repercussions. All right, so you have your idea, you get your imagining of your body at that point of the desire fulfilled. You say something to move it into the linguistic center. I am now this, and then you allow the emotion to exist in that state in your body and mind until you arrive at a point where you feel it done. Okay, so as you get into the process, Neville didn't get into the details here, but he also felt it. There's a position, or there's a timing in the whole process after which you understand from something out of universe that the universe has actually started the process for you. And that's when you know that it's done and you can just forget about it. So it would make sense if you were like going to try and manifest a battleship or, a nuclear aircraft carrier or some big ass thing, that it would take you years to do that, right? And it might be years before you felt the response from universe. And it would be taking all that time to get the act together to provide you with your desire fulfilled. But that's how it works. Some things take longer. Some things are immediate. Some things take long because you have internal conflicts. Your desire is at some level of internal conflict with yourself because of its ramifications on your life or the other people in your life. All different kinds of things can provide context that will have a conflict within it that will hinder the process. So you're better off starting off with something small, just because it's easier to be clean about the wants, desires, context, etc. See, this is not simple. It's a complex process. Each aspect of it is not complicated, but nonetheless, the whole process is involved. So, that's basically it. When you put the emotion behind it, depending on what it is, maybe it's going to take a couple of days, maybe you do it for a few hours, maybe just a few minutes. And then at some point, you just let it go. You just let it be. And then it will start to manifest in your life. There's a lot of qualifiers as to how long it takes, and we can analyze that. We can do reductionist thinking about all of this and come to some conclusions that have a point and are valid to some extent. But this is basically the process. You need to end up with the desire fulfilled feeling in your body. That's where Neville Goddard knew instantly, and he could direct his body very well because he was a dancer. So he responded to those clues and was able to get those emotions into his body, those feelings into his body without too much trouble. So a lot of us are going to have a harder time. The more polluted your body is with bad food, bad thoughts, bad media, all of that, the harder it's going to be to do this. And that's why most people will give it up, because they don't have the determination, and the universe and the evil ones that are directing it have put them into this particular state. And that's it. They're just not going to be able to struggle out of it. However, the universe itself is wanting this process out there. It wants it to be expanded. There's reasons for this. We can get into speculations about that. But anyway, so you're going to see more and more people talking about it, more and more wild ideas about it, more and more people complaining about it, saying you shouldn't do it, it's magic, and all this kind of crap. That's basically the process. The key to it is we found, my old farts group found in the in the ancient literature is the lemma, the linguistic center. The lemma exists both in your physical brain and in your mind. It is very unique that way. And that's the point of it all. Anyway, so I'm going to get on to my coffee and breakfast, and you guys get on to your manifestation practice. It is a continual practice. You get better at it over time. And, you keep on keeping on, and don't give up. It works. All right, guys, have a good day.